But today, I want to go deeper. I want to strip back all the strategies and the numbers and talk about you, the person behind the brand. So let's start at the beginning.
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you for having me here in your platform, and I'm super excited, and you know what you built here. So I'm very excited to share this experience.
Oh man.
The beginning, well, September 1989. You know, it's was born in Venezuela on a Saturday afternoon, and then I blame that, for my outgoing personality. It's Saturday in Venezuela. It's a party day, but no, man, grew up, had a very middle class type like childhood. We were very blessed that we had everything. We had a great family that's still together. Now that we live in a world that you see a lot of families being broken up, and my mom and dad, they supported every single idea that we had or what we wanted to do. And the dream growing up was playing professional soccer. So our entire life was kind of geared towards that. And I told my dad, hey, I want to play soccer when I was like 7. And he was my biggest support. He was my rock. Still is to this day. And at some point I was playing in 3 different teams, going to school, and we needed to make this happen. And at the age of 14, I left home to go to Italy and play soccer out there for a year by myself, not knowing any Italian, and living in a hotel and so on. And then at 18, I ended up in Spain, in Barcelona, playing, and got injured, had a big fight with one of the coaches, had like a huge identity crisis, and decided that soccer might not be the path. I was like angry, came back home, my dad was also angry, and long story short, it's a couple of years in Venezuela going to school, and political situation got like really, really bad, as you might know, and we're looking for ways to, have new opportunities. And said, here, I built a skill over the years of playing a sport, and let's go get a soccer scholarship in the U.S. So we emailed every single coach, D1, D2, D3 here in the U.S., and with the universe provided, I ended up playing on a D1 school here in Florida, and full ride, and that's why I ended up here in Jacksonville. And now, that was the beginning of the business that we started to build.
See, that's amazing.
That's a very fast version, by the way.
Yeah. Trust me, we're going to get into it. We're going to break all this down. Oh, man. Hello, everyone. This is your boy, Michael Rashad Yerby, on Unfiltered Fridays. As you know, this is a live show, and we pick and have the guest that's going to give us success. The one and only Luis. Your journey, I would say, is proof that success isn't linear, if I should say that, right?
Yeah.
It's built with resilience, reinvention, and a willingness to push beyond limits. From growing up in Venezuela with dreams of soccer to building a content empire with Biz Bros, your story is layered with setbacks, breakthroughs, and lessons that so many inspiring entrepreneurs can learn from. But today, I want to go deeper. I want to strip back all the strategies and the numbers and talk about you, the person behind the brand. So let's start at the beginning.
Man, well, first of all, Mike, thank you for having me here in your platform, and I'm super excited, and what you built here. So I'm very excited to share this experience.
Oh man.
The beginning, well, September 1989. It's was born in Venezuela on a Saturday afternoon, and then I blame that for my outgoing personality. It's Saturday in Venezuela. It's a party day, but no, man, grew up, had a very middle class type like childhood. We were very blessed that we had everything. We had a great family that's still together. Now that we live in a world that you see a lot of families being broken up, and my mom and dad, they supported every single idea that we had or what we wanted to do. And really the dream growing up was playing professional soccer. So our entire life was kind of geared towards that. And, I told my dad, hey, I want to play soccer when I was like 7. And he was my, my biggest support. He was my rock, still is to this day. And, at some point I was playing in 3 different teams, going to school and we needed to make this happen. And, at the age of 14, I left home to go to Italy and play soccer out there for a year by myself, not knowing any Italian and, living in a hotel and so on. And then at 18, I ended up in Spain, in Barcelona playing and got injured, had a big fight with one of the coaches, had like a huge identity crisis and decided that soccer might not be the path. I was like angry, came back home. My dad was also angry. And, long story short, it's a couple of years in Venezuela going to school, and political situation got like really, really bad, as you might know. And we're looking for ways to, have new opportunities. And said, here, I built a skill over the years of playing a sport, and let's go get a soccer scholarship in the U.S. So we emailed every single coach, D1, D2, D3 here in the U.S. And with the universe provided, I ended up playing on a D1 school here in Florida and full ride. And that's why I ended up here in Jacksonville. And now, that was the beginning of the business that we started to build.
Wow. See, that's amazing.
That's a very fast version, by the way.
Yeah. We trust me. We're going to get into it. We're going to break all this down. Oh, man. So growing up in Venezuela, like you said, soccer, you play soccer for 3 different teams. So soccer wasn't just a sport for you. It was your dream. It was your passion. It was your identity. Can you take me back to that defining moment in your childhood where you left and you felt like that dream was becoming real to you?
It became real the second I told my dad. My room was filled with like soccer posters all over the place, right? From very little, they encouraged me to visualize myself playing in this big stadium. So like for me, it was real since day one. I knew that was the path that I wanted to take, and there's a lot of sacrifices, but really the day that it became like really real and it got really scary was the day I left to Italy to go play. So what happened was we had an Easter tournament. We go with a Venezuelan team. We do really well. 2 guys, which one of them was me, and another, we got selected to go do some tryouts in the summer. So we go with our coach. And by the way, all this is we had to raise money because my parents at the time was like, well, we cannot pay all these airplane tickets. Yeah. So we ended up recycling a lot of paper, a lot of cans, and we will exchange them for money. And then to this point, I haven't asked them, but I'm pretty sure they kind of pitched in some of it. But I remember just working a ton. Like we had tons and tons of paper to exchange it for the money to go pay for these airplane tickets. So I think that was a really important lesson also along the way, that my dad was like, look, if you really want it, you got to show that you really want to do this. We end up in Italy doing these tryouts, and I get selected to play in a very small town called Agropoli. That's like 2 hours south of Naples. And obviously mega excited. The dream is like right there. You could feel it. We were playing a 4th division team with obviously the junior team, but the idea was to stay there for a year and then go try out for bigger teams, right? Yeah. And jump on the plane by myself. So, my parents put me on the plane, and then I go, and we were going to meet the agent that kind of recruited us in Rome. And I remember when the plane landed in Rome, and I was like the last one to leave because I was underage. So there's almost like a chaperone there in the airplane kind of waiting for me. And at this point, I know no Italian, nothing. My English, probably, I knew the basics because of what I've learned in school. And it got really scary really fast. I remember sitting in that wind and, looking out the window on the plane. I was like, man, I wish, I hope they just turn me around, basically. I was like super scared. And but I started remembering kind of like, hey, this is what you've been working all your life at the point, 14, almost 15 years old. And we're right there. This is the dream. My dad had a conversation with me before we left. And so I remember all that. I was like, okay, let's go do this, right? And the guy was there waiting for me. And then we drove 4 hours to the town that I was going to go play. And then the adventure began, right? So that was probably a very key moment. And to this point, I have 2 young ones. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And to think leave them at 14 to go to a different country by themselves, to me, it's insane. So I say thank you to my parents for allowing me to do this. And, today I'm 35. So I still remember that day like it was yesterday, and it was pretty impactful.
I bet it was. Man, that took a lot for your parents to do. I mean, the trust that they had for you, dang, that's crazy. So, as you go through your journey, you know what I'm saying, it came a moment that your dream started kind of like slipping away. Like, we talked about you leaving Italy, coming to the States, I started playing there in Jackson. But, there's a thing, especially in your bio, when you talk about how like your dream kind of slipped away from you, and it was kind of heartbreaking that forced someone to redefine themselves. And it's like, can you describe the exact moment when you realized that soccer wasn't going to be your future, and what did you have to do mentally to prepare for that?
Yeah, good question. So that moment came before we came to the States to play here. It was when I was 18. So I played a year in Italy. We had like a really negative experience with the agent. The team wanted me back, but the agent took me there on a almost like an illegal matter. So like the government denied my visa when I had to go back. So I had to stay in Venezuela for another year, graduated high school, and then I end up in an academy in Spain, in Barcelona. So we go to this academy and really high level, but we get overtrained. There's like a couple changes of coaches. I have an incredible coach that right now he directs one of the main academies in Mexico. Like he's one of my mentors and friends in life today that, to this day, I owe him a ton. He got me actually a tryout with one of the first division teams, and that team really wanted me to stay with one of the junior teams at the time. And because of passport issues, there's like these like slots that you have international players versus like European players. And I was gonna be one of those international players, so they were gonna put me almost in a sister program to go there. And I was coming from diagnosed being overtrained, and at the time I had an injury. I was playing through the injury. And a different coach that was in the academy at that point, he was like, hey, that pain is just mental. Like, you just got to think that you're going to get better. I'm like, I'm trying to escape to go to a doctor and see what happens. Ends up that I have a tear in one of my calves, and all these things is happening. And I just remember not enjoying the process. I didn't look forward to go train anymore. I was not having fun while playing. It seemed like a very big lift. And I was like, I was in that moment in the decision where like I'm 18, about to go into 19. All my friends from high school were going to college, maybe already a year into college. And I thought I was like losing a lot of time. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. And the scenario was, you're going to go to the sister team. They're going to pay you about 400 euros a month. They're going to put you in an apartment. And then if you perform, then obviously we move forward, right?
Yeah.
And that's like right there at the door of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
You would have told me that 2 years prior, and that would have been like an absolute yes. But for some reason, that moment felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. I was overtrained. I was tired. I was exhausted. I was frustrated. At some degree, like the academy also lied to us. At some point, we were going to go do some tryouts in China. They brought some guys from Africa saying that they were 18. Turns out that they're like 24. So these teams were like, we're not going to do deals with you anymore. So like, it was just like all these things going after. And I'm like, well, maybe... I thought, maybe this is the universe telling me that this might not be the path. And I remember calling my dad and saying, look, I appreciate you for everything that you did, and helping me to get to this point. But my decision is I am going to go back home, and I'm not going to I'm not going to pursue this anymore. Yeah. And that was a really tough moment because, my dad was there for years, taking me to every single practice, going with me and practicing with me on Sundays afternoon on like a double training, on making a big sacrifice he sold his car to be able to pay for this program that I was in Spain. And we didn't talk for about 4 months when I got home because of that anger that we both had. Like I had this anger towards like the sport. I decided not to play anymore. And, my dad, understandably, he thought I disappointed him in many ways because we were right there. That was the moment. So I decided, shift gears and focus in my school in Venezuela. And I got a job. I started working with Red Bull. So that kept me like really, really busy. And in an environment that I really enjoyed. It was something different. I didn't have to train every single day.
Yeah.
But, that's the sport you love. That's the sport you love to play. And one day I was like, hey, I want to go back and play again. And that's why I started playing back with my college in Venezuela. But it's very different than here. It's like almost like a rec league. But I started moving. I started enjoying the game again. my dad came around, we started talking, and that's around the time that Venezuela was like in a very, well, still is, but at the time was like very dangerous for a university student to be around, and there was a lot of political unrest, and we were going out and motivating people to go vote and all these things, and I had a very negative experience where it's called kidnapping, express kidnapping. So I was taken one night for a couple hours, driven around and, left on the street with a friend after they stole the car that we were in. Luckily, nothing else happened to us, but that was the night I came back home and I was like, look, maybe the opportunity I want, or like, I don't know what I want, but I know that I don't want to stay here because I don't see a future for me. And that's when we sat down that same weekend and we were like, okay, we built this skill. The level was up there. We might have to train a little bit more. And then we used soccer to provide a new opportunity to come here to the States, what I call the best country in the world, because he's provided everything to me. Luckily, a guy saw my email and saw my video and he's like, come on over. But, at that point, the sport was more of a vehicle to pursue my education, pursue my legality here in the country. And eventually I met my wife and we got married and this is life. So even though I didn't realize my top dream, I was able to play on a top school here in the US. I think the stat was about 1% of high school students in the US get to a D1 school. And that's a pretty aggressive stat. Yeah. And to think that this guy from Venezuela ends up playing in this, university and getting a very good education, meeting his wife. So to me, that was probably the best scenario that could happen. And now we're doing some cool projects in the soccer world too. So like, it's not like that the adventure with the sport has not ended.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You said a lot there, especially like when you was talking about your dad. Your dad means so much and still means so much to you, right? How he was like your biggest supporter. How when you had to make that decision, you talked to your dad, and just that's phenomenal. And then also, like making that decision and like, okay, I'm gonna move forward in this. I'm gonna do this, and actually taking the time out to make that cold call for that risk. So, it makes me think before, Biz Bros, you tried a lot of stuff. Like you said, you Red Bull. Also, you said this in your bio, like, you used to do stickers, T-shirts. I think it was like ebooks and stuff like that after you got your education and everything. But all of that necessarily didn't work. Can you take me back to a failure that at that time felt like a complete disaster? Like, hey, this is not working out. I don't know if I can move forward in this. And then hindsight, you now look at it and like, man, that was the biggest lesson I ever learned.
Yeah, there's so many of those, but the one I remember the most is the t-shirt business that we started. One day, it starts as a sticker business. Our roommate comes in, but this is probably 2014, 2015, maybe. Like, I just graduated college. I had a very flexible job in the soccer world. And so I had some time to pursue entrepreneurship in a way. Like, I really wanted to build something of my own, and but I didn't really know what. So I saw a video of this guy that was really successful. And he's like, if you don't know what to do, then start trying new things, right? And then, you're going to find out really quick that you might not like this thing. And then it's going to point you in the right direction until you find what you really like. And so one night, this roommate, he's a programmer, right? And I don't know where he came from, and he bought this vinyl cutter machine, and he brought it into the living room. And he told me and my brother, he's like, "Hey guys, why don't we start a business? Let's sell vinyl stickers." And that starts moving forward. We realized very quickly that not a lot of people want to buy $20 stickers, and the process was horrible, trying to like peel all the vinyl and things, and we were staying up late. So we end up in this conference in Orlando where it's almost like a trade show. So big brands go there to purchase, to put in big, purchase orders. Yeah. And we fall in love with this screen printing machine. And we're like, this is it. This is the business. We're going to create this brand. And, we registered a brand called 6 Foot Southern at the time because our roommate was a 6 Foot Southern. We start creating these designs and get creative. Keep in mind, we had no background on design. We had no background on any of this. So we're like YouTubing, how to create a design on Illustrator, how to do this, how to turn an image into a vector, like all these crazy things. Yeah. And at the time I was working in a fitness studio. And I remember most of the customers either had small businesses or were part of companies. So I start selling these t-shirts to like our members in the studio, like, hey, it's I remember a bunch of 5Ks or races and things like that. So we end up selling like actually really good, word of mouth. We didn't have a lot of online presence, but I remember one order came in and it's like 300 shirts. And I was like, yeah. And then I remember when I got home, because the process was so taxing, you know, you had to, I don't know if you've been, you know, if you've done like screen printing or have seen videos about it, but you have to prepare the screen with like UV lights and the special chemical, and then you have to like rinse it, and you cannot do the water too hard because you ruin the design. And then if it's 3 colors, it's 3 screens, and then you have to align the thing. So anyways, the setup was about 3 hours, and then we had to order the 300 shirts and do the 300 shirts with the 3 colors, because that was the one that was more expensive, and we sold. I remember just being there, starting screen printing from like 9 p.m. till like 4 a.m. And at the end, like these designs were coming out like cricket, and we had to like redo it again. And I just sat there, man. I was like, man, like we just spent $5,000 in this setup that we have here that we didn't have, by the way. This went through my roommate's credit card. And I just don't want to do this, man. Like, this is insane. Like, I'm not sleeping. Like, we have cords all over the house hanging with like wet t-shirts. Like, what are we doing? And, you know, at the time we weren't, you know, smart enough to learn maybe to, you know, subcontract somebody or doing like a direct to garment thing. Like, and I just remember being very frustrated, and we're like, this is it. Like, we're not doing this anymore. And we talked to her roommate, and we had no idea what to do next. And that for a long time was a very big issue with a guy that I lived together for 5 years, and then my brother too, and to the point that they didn't speak for years after that. So like that really, you know, made a dent in that friendship. And I felt like the biggest failure because, you know, we're putting in, it's not our money, somebody else's money, and then to just like give up at some point. But I just didn't see myself enjoying the process. It was almost like a callback to that experience that I had with soccer. And I was like, I don't want to go through that again. And I'm just going to go and try something else. So it did feel like a failure, but it also opened the door to finding really what we enjoy doing.
And like you said, you know, starting a business is very tricky. You know, one of the quotes that I got from you, you said, starting a business with family is tricky. Love is there, but so is tension. What's the most hardest moment you and your brother had as business partners, and how did you navigate that without damaging your relationships?
And again, like 1,000 moments of those, right? We've been doing this together since around that time, 2015, almost like 10 years now, which is crazy to think. I have a couple moments, but I think it's important to establish priorities. Very early, we decided, well, first of all, we spent a few years apart, right? Like when I left to Italy, I was like 14, 15. There were like about 5 years that we weren't that close either. Like we're 3 years apart. And then he ends up in Jacksonville to go play for a team here. And he crashes in our house. And that's when we started like really, really bonding. And, you know, just both being outside of our home, you know, parents are far away. We're very familiar, like we're very like close to our family. So our culture is like, we have to be together, right? So I just remember just feeling very lucky to have him by my side. And it's like that person that will have my back no matter what. So it made a lot of logical sense to ask him to do these things with me. And he's like, yeah, dude, let's do it. He was always like, yeah, absolutely. We'll figure it out. Right. He's very creative mind. He's like awesome. And, but then, you know, with business, it comes risks, and it comes like doubt sometimes. And then sometimes we're not in the same page. So there was many conversations where we were both like, hey, is this really the thing that we want to do with the agency? Like, do we really want to go to the online side? Like, what do we want to do? And he's very wise. He's younger than me, but he's very wise, and he reads a ton. And he's like, look, I trust you 100%, you know, and I want you to understand that. And just know that even though we're 50-50 in the business, right, the rule is if we come to an impasse, you are the one that has the last decision. So like that very early on made a big difference, because, you know, if for some reason we're split up on an idea that we want to do, we both do research, we both present our cases, we both explain why we want to do what we want to do, and what would the benefit be, and obviously we make an objective decision. But at the end of the day, the decision kind of falls into me, and I welcome that responsibility. I enjoy it. He is more passive, like so it also plays with the personalities, right? We spend a lot of years doing the same thing both, and then we're like, well, your personality kind of leans towards this side, let's delegate that to you, and then I'll do these other things. So I'm more the outgoing, I'm more the face of it, I'm the one doing podcast interviews, I'm the one on the content mostly. He shows up obviously on the podcast, but we started understanding our dynamic. And then recently, about 15 months ago, we ended up buying our second business, a podcast studio that we rent out to people.
Wow.
And that was probably the biggest investment that we've ever made. And it was not our money. We had to like go ask for a loan, and it was a seller finance deal. But it created a lot of stress financially for us for a few months. And we were kind of drifting apart. We weren't communicating. He was feeling angry. Like I was also feeling angry. Like we thought it was going to be one thing, and then it wasn't. On the business side, we're like, this is an ideal client for us because they could buy the next product that we already sell.
Yeah.
And the gap was too big. So like we just misread the situation. And he comes in one day and he's like, hey, I don't want this gap in between us. What doesn't get said creates distance.
I like that.
And I want you to know that like I'm here, dude. And at the time I was also going through like obviously lots of stress that translates at home with, different friction points and things. And I just remember like starting to cry and just be like, here's how I feel. Like I hold my feelings a lot and I just like continue to hold it up and until that day. And it was like this cork that, came out and we started talking and we canceled like all the sessions that day were like we rescheduled them and then we just went and had a brother's day.
Wow.
We just went out and had a good time.
I want to start from that quote that you just said. What doesn't get said makes distance.
Yeah.
What made your brother so profound in saying that? Like, even just to think that through and come to you and be like, hey, bro, we got to get this straight.
Yeah. Well, he does read a ton. Like I said, he's way wiser than me. And it's not his quote. He took it from a book. I can't remember the author. And he told me like he says it all the time. But he had a period where he didn't have like a really good personal relationship with the girlfriend that he was at the time, and that was a pretty heavy moment in his life. And then when he came out of that and he met his now wife. That we all love and adore. The first thing that he did was, and he shares his story a ton, so like I'm happy to share it. But the first thing that he did was like, hey, I know that we've been dating maybe for like a week or talking for like a week, but I don't want to be secrets, between us because that was something that was happening in the previous relationship. And here's my truth. And he completely said everything and anything. Like it's incredible. Like they hold no secrets. I admire that of him so much. And Madison was like, perfect. And he said the bad things, the good thing, like everything, no filter. I'm like, how are you insane? Why are you telling the college story that we, the thing that we did? And he's like, no secrets, man. So that experience and that output, like he ended up being like, he accepted, be like, look, you're going to accept me as I am. And if you don't, that's fine. You're not for me. And I move forward. And he applied the same thing with me. And then since that day, it's been very similar, even though we were brothers and we, grew up together, but that was like that defining moment. And, I thank him for that because, I don't know if I would be here or we would be here as a business if it wasn't for him. Like he's done so much. So it's very important to have somebody like that by your side. And another rule that internally that we put in place was like, dude, family above everything. Like we're not going to let this business like destroy our family. Right? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hold on. Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Am I frozen? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are frozen.
Oh, no. Okay, hold on. I might have, for the people that are live, it happens.
Yeah, this happens. That's why. Hey, we can be good with the bad and indifferent.
Yeah, a little wild. I might have to use a backup camera, but this is crazy. Hold on.
Hey guys, if you have any questions as you guys are watching through, please do not be afraid to ask. We are here and we are live.
Yeah. If you give me 2 minutes and we can keep going. I can multitask, but I can plug in like a secondary webcam that I have here to do this. Perfect.
We are still live. We're having technical difficulties, but that's part of life. That's how we move forward in. As we, one thing, let me see if he's trying to come in. I see him coming in. I know he's trying to, but he's having technical difficulties with his browser. And that's common. Situations like that do happen. So we still move on. One thing we're talking about, and especially in this conversation, is as a business owner, you're going to have to go through things. You're going to have to touch every position of your business, every position, from the lowest job to the high, the fancy job of being a CEO or CEO, right? You're going to have to like do it all. And that means you're going to have to go through a lot of hardships. Pride is going to have to take a back seat to what you have to live for and what you have to do. We are still having technical difficulties. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. Louise, if you can hear me, you're probably just going to come in on audio only. That, that's probably going to be where we have to go. Louise, see, having technical difficulties. If you're joining live, we was having a good conversation about to get in the crust of things as we broke everything down from start to finish about his business, about life, what he's been through. And one thing I like to bring entrepreneurs and just these guests on who have been through tremendous pain, who've been through tremendous situations in business and personal life, that they're no different than you. They're no different than you. What changed the situation is that they got up and fought. If you're struggling with something in life, if you're got daddy issues, mommy issues, brother, sister issues, family issues, if you got financial issues, you don't have to stay in that. Have mental issues, you don't have to stay in that. You can be better than what you are. And one thing I love about bringing these guests on is that we are all individuals. So of course we're different, but we have almost the same type of problems. We all go through a financial season. We all go through a spiritual season. We all go through a mental season. We all go through, our body betrays us physically. Things that we was once able to do, now we can't because maybe we got older, or one day we tweaked our knee or a shoulder or something like that. Just like, for example, myself, I went through a shoulder surgery. It messed me up last year. My shoulder was messed up for a good year and a half. If anybody know, I was getting pretty jacked, pretty big. Not too big, but, nice size. And, getting chiseled like I wanted to. In July, I went through a major reconstruction of my shoulder. There's certain things with my shoulder, with my arm, I can't do to this day. Do I cry about it? No, I work it out every day. I try to get somewhere. Before, I couldn't even get my arm past here, but now I can hold my arm here like it's nothing. Before, I was shaking to even get my arm there. What I'm trying to say is this, is that we all go through situations. We all have our struggles. We all have our shortcomings. But the difference between you and the millionaire, the difference between you and the multi-millionaire or the billionaire, the successful one that you see that post on, Instagram. Of course, there's those who, who be doing a lot of fugazing, you know what I mean? But I'm talking about the serious ones that you admire, that you know for sure that are successful. The difference between you and them, and the only difference, is they didn't stop. They got a reward for their pain. Are you willing to get a reward for your pain? And that's all. That's at the end of the day. That's all. Are you willing to get a reward for your pain? So, next week, hope we get this situated and we have our guests back on. Oh, let's see. You got him.
We are back.
Yeah.
We have to change angles. My apologies, man.
It's all good, man. This is life. This is part of life, the struggle. I was just talking with our guest, just letting them know, like, this situation happens, you know what I'm saying? But it's the difference between someone who will get embarrassed and say, oh, man, I can't do it now. Or somebody that says, you know what, let's keep it rolling. Life happens. This is a segment of life. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah. So I appreciate for your patience. Let me see if I can. Oh, we're still recording. All right, hold on.
Yeah, we are still.
Okay, give me 1 sec. All right, we're back.
Like we never left.
Well, it's also my fault. I've been testing a bunch of new equipment here that, I bring stuff to my house so we can take it to the studio. And today the equipment that we have is not passing the test. So my apologies.
Hey, no problem. Gotta return it.
Yes, sir. All right.
Yeah. So we was getting the cusp of things. I just real quick, we was really just on, you was talking about how you and your brother, your dynamic is, and how, he's wise, he reads a lot. And from him reading so much, how he kind of structure your business like you having the final word, like y'all both come with equal arguments or whatnot. But at the end of the day, you're making a decision, and how that kind of weighed on you. And then him having this honesty, I'm not sure if you,
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it's so important to have somebody like that in your corner. And Yeah, I mean, I can't thank him enough because, the reason we do what we do and we love, what we do is because of our relationship, because I could not be doing, like, it's really stressful when you start a business, right? There's so many things that can go wrong. I mean, we just experienced something like this, and where it's like, well, imagine you're launching a podcast, right? And you're interviewing like your idol, and then that happens and you're like, dude, what's going on? And, it's just to have the maturity and they'd be like, you know what? It happens because we've done more than 600 episodes in our show, and look, still happens, right? And episode 100, we still make mistakes, and that's just a little part of it. And then you're like, okay, well, now we have to do taxes. Wait, we have to do taxes. How do you do taxes, right? It's like, so it's so important to have a partner like that. And obviously, we've learned quite a bit over the last like 7 years of working together, and we learned pretty quickly to invest in our coaches, in our mentors, and have people in our corner that can support us that way. But yeah, man, like I don't think even with my wife, I don't think I would have been doing this journey with my wife. that's how crazy, right? So I'm extremely grateful of everything that we've done together, and to have him in my corner.
You said you talked like you talked about family, right? You talked about like your wife. You wish and that you couldn't do this without your wife. And then also you talked earlier when we was off air about being a father. How did being a father change everything for you? How did that becoming a dad reshape the way you view your time, your business, and really what truly matters for you?
Yeah, dude. You have good questions. It's like you do this for a living. Man, I mean, that day that I met Luca, my first child, everything changed, right? Like, it's like, okay, it's not about me anymore. And I'm a big fan of take care of yourself first. Like, I am a massive fan of that, because like, if we don't take care of ourselves, then how are we gonna take care of somebody else, right? But you start seeing the world under a different perspective, right? And we're responsible for that little kid, and he's gonna run laps around us 1,000 times. Like, that's like incredible. But at the same time, for me, it worked more as a motivation than anything else, right? Some people might be like very overwhelmed, and to me, I think I've learned that I welcome challenges. Like, when my life is going almost in autopilot, that things are going good. In the past, I would like create these situations that would ruin that, but to keep me active, right? So I've learned that, I need to be doing a challenge or doing something that's challenging in my eyes to be able to go and perform. And to me, that's the ultimate, right? It's like, okay, what is the legacy that we're leaving, to our kids? What is the legacy that, we're going to be creating for them? And that changed it all, man. And, the fact that sometimes we also have to hit pause and go and enjoy some time with them, it's huge. And I also put it in perspective, my own relationship with my parents, and like how much sacrifice, what they did was, and like, it was not easy. Now that I have to live it with Luca and now Mateo too, which, we would have had Mateo first. I think we would have just had one kid. But they're the joy of my day, man. Every time, like, I just have a blast with them. I love them to death, obviously, and I just laugh with them. And it's the picture of them is right here on my desk, and it's like, this is what we do, right? We do it for them, and they just motivate me in a very interesting way.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. You kind of alluded to like having mentors, and one quote that I see is like, it's like, we shaped by the people who guide us. So who's the one mentor that, when you say you had mentors, that shaped you in a way that you can think about life and business in this manner? And what's the important lessons that they taught you about this business?
Mentors is so important to have them in your corner. I have so many. Started with my mom and my dad. Like, I have a tattoo in my back. It's pretty massive, and it's like my guardian angel. And in the helmet, it's like this, like almost like Roman, like army guy with wings, and in the helmet there's a daisy, And in Spanish, that word, that daisy flower, is called margarita, and that's my mom's middle name, and that's my mom's favorite flower. And she's always in my head. I speak to them almost every single day, even though they're back in Venezuela, right? And she's always like, "Hey, look at the positives, right? Like things happen always for a reason." And like we grew up in a very unique household because like, you know, she would do like martial arts, and she would believe in like energy in the world and all this. So like, and we were raised Catholic, right? Yeah. So like it was like very interesting environment, but we also grew up with a very open mind to different things. And you know, there's many experiences also that we can go dive, and like they're very hard to explain. Yeah. But the belief kept happening, and she remembered telling me when I was like very little, she's like, "You're very powerful at manifesting things, like at doing the things that you want to do and achieving the things that you want to achieve." And like, to me, that's still like, that drives me a ton, because, you know, when we get in our heads and we might start thinking about negative things or like the things that we don't want to happen, then those things happen because like that's where our attention is going. And so that it helps me go back and be grounded, right? So that's just one example with her. My dad, again, my rock, like he just like very persistent. Like he was a tough guy, still is. We used to have a very different relationship now that I'm an adult. Yeah. But obviously, you know, the fact that, you know, he never gave up on my dream. And, you know, I was like, if he never did, like, why would I, right? Whatever dream I have. Then on the soccer world, like that coach that I told you, Albert, one thing that he did that was super important, and I think is super important for a lot of people, is he would sit down individually with each one of their players, and they would show film of one thing that you could get better at after a game. And it was one thing. It was not 20 things. It was one thing. And he's like, this week, I want you to work on passing with your right foot, like from the inside of your right foot. And that was like, we will get better that week on that thing. And then the next week was something different. And I remember taking that lesson to our real life. And, you know, it's like, what is the one thing that we're working on? You know, even though we have 1,000 things going around, what is the one thing that we're getting better at, right? Personal health, learning, you know, to cook, like what in your personal life, you know, what is the one thing that we're just getting better at? And I've noticed that I get stagnant and the business doesn't do well, and my private life doesn't do well when I'm not leveling up that way. So to me, that's another lesson. Recently, I've been working with an incredible coach. Her name is Katie Richardson, and like our first ever customer in like 2020 with the service and that we have, he had her as a coach. And I remember editing a podcast episode that I'm like, man, like one day I need to meet her. Like I need to just meet with her. And I've been very blessed that now I get to work with her. I get to call her a friend. And with her, it was, you know, so many things. But the most important thing is like, write your thoughts, like get your thoughts out of your head, right? And that's a little bit more tactical, but sometimes like we just feel clogged. We just feel like everything it's in here, and it's just like really challenging to like get it out. And the second, because I never kept a diary ever in my life.
You did?
So no, it was not a thing. And, you know, my parents never did, and they were not entrepreneurs. Like, I don't know, it was not a thing. And then the second I started writing, it was like, wow, like just like the power of getting things out of your head and putting them in a place. So that to me tactically helped me a ton, or still continues to help me to move things forward. So I think that's something super important. Like everything, like I feel like every person that I meet that I keep in my life today is because they're adding to my life and not subtracting from my life. And, you know, it's interesting because sometimes we have these family members, or maybe we have these friends, right? That we're like, why am I still talking to these people? Right? They're just like sucking the energy. So anyway, so those are a few examples, and, you know, things that I've taken that are probably present every time that I'm working on something, or that, you know, we're executing on something.
So question, if we strip away the business, we strip away the entrepreneurship, we strip away the podcast, at the core, and you kind of alluded on this, who are you?
And that's a question I've been trying to answer since I left soccer, right? Because that was my identity. That was like, Luis is the soccer player, right? Like that's how everybody knew me. That's, if I wasn't in school, I was playing soccer, right? So I think it's taken me a few years to get to the point that where I'm at today. I think I'm a creator. I'm not in the creator in the sense of content. I think I'm a creator of things in my life.
Yeah.
Going back to, you know, that sentence that my mom said, your manifestation is very powerful. Like, so it's like, I truly believe that we can literally create anything that we want in this world.
I agree.
we have the tools, we have the possibilities. Where today with technology, we're like a phone call away. We're right there. So because we do so many things, right? I enjoy so many things. That's the other thing. I mean, if you see my background today, it's probably overwhelming because, you have the racing gig over here, you have the soccer, you have the Power Ranger stuff, you have the books, right? Oh, you have the name of our podcast, right? There are all these things that I'm very passionate about. Where I always land is like, what can I do? What can I create with like the things that we have, right? And at some point it was like racing obstacle races, and we did an 8-hour race, a 24-hour race. Like we did 25 races in 1 year all over the country, right? Like the other year was, can we create something on soccer? That we created the podcast, we created the studio, we create relationships. So I think at that point it's like a creator of possibilities, of opportunity, a creator of the life that we want to do. So, it's taken me a while to get to that point, but I think I finally, I mean, if you go to my social media handle, is Luis that creates. And, I'm again, full credit to my brother because he's like, his Fonzie creates. And I was like, dude, like that's incredible. And he put it on because he writes like on the content context, because that's our world. But then when I heard it, that's the download that I had. It was like, man, we're creating the life that we want to have. Like a kid from Venezuela, third world country, that baseball is the main family, had no connections in the world of soccer, that, we ended up playing soccer, and then we end up here in the best country in the world, building a business, living in the house that we want to live, in the neighborhood that we want to live, with like the dog, the kids, like the kids having great education. Like, what?
Yeah.
We created this.
Yes.
And anyway, so I think that's where my head is at the moment. And, maybe ask me in a couple of years, but that's where we are. We're creating.
So I do have another question, and this is the last question for you.
You're good.
There's someone out watching this right now that's thinking like, I'm at my breaking point. I'm scared as hell. I'm ready to quit. I got to worry about mental health. The economy is in crap. I'm going through so much. My girlfriend or boyfriend left me. What would you tell them?
It gets better only if you want it to get better. Because everybody's like, hey, it will get better eventually. And when you're in that moment, you're like, F you.
Yeah.
I'm in the hole, man. Like, what do you mean it gets better? Like, this sucks. Yeah. And, it's especially over the last like few years, I think we've lived like a pretty unique environment in this country. And I think a lot of people feel that way, but we have to take action, right? We have to start moving. It's almost like, when you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, like I just slept 4 hours last night, and it's like, I had to go to work, and dude, okay, guess what? Your first job is putting your foot on the ground.
Yep.
Right. And then I put the second foot on the ground, and then walk to wash my face and drink some water. And like little by little, you start taking action and you create momentum. It's the same thing with life. But the intention has to be there. You need to want to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
So I wish them the best, and I hope that they can recognize that, and that, pursuing and creating what they want to create is way better than sitting down and, crying about the situations that we cannot control.
Man, you said so much there. And I say this all the time to my viewers and just everyone, like, the reason why the situation continues is you decide to sit in it because you want to be a victim of it, instead of, I guess, how should I say this? Trying like hell to get out of it. If what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? Because you're going to have to, no matter if you sit in it or not, you're going to struggle. Why not get a reward, I guess, from your struggles? So that's how I think. Luis, this conversation has been incredible, man.
Thank you.
Not just because, your business insights and things you talked about with Biz Bros and just your mentorship and, going through your life and stuff like that, but because the human behind it, the struggles, the doubts, the reinventions of you, how you had to constantly reinvent yourself. Like you said, you constantly created. You lived them, you turned them into something that inspires not just me, but others around you. Before we wrap up, is there one lesson you want people to take away from this conversation that will make them better?
Well, first of all, thank you for your wonderful questions. Without them, I don't think those words will come out of my mouth. So I appreciate you deeply and your patience and everything with the tech. But, you guys end up seeing a little bit more of my life and my, how I have fun. Man, one thing, I think you're in control of your life. Sometimes we think all the situations happening around us are happening and our circumstances because of those things. But at the end of the day, we're a decision away to get out of that, right? So I encourage everybody to look inside and decide one way or another, right? And then you're going to make another decision, and then you're going to make another decision, right? So do we want to stay, without taking action and in the current state? If you don't like that current state, nobody else is coming to save you. So might as well start moving.
Is there anything that you want to say, promote? The floor is yours.
Thank you, man. Well, if you're listening to podcasts, or obviously you're watching, we have our show Content is Profit in all the platforms. Come check us out. We talk about content and how to turn it into profit. Awesome conversations with people like Michael. And then we started opening a little community called the Business Creator Club. So right now, the time of this recording is $1 lifetime access, $1 a month lifetime access.
Okay.
People have been asking us to do this for a couple of years, and we're like, no, we are service providers, and we decided to start like a little group and answer some questions on that side, and we're bringing some experts on different topics around content that are gonna blow our minds. So businesscreator.club, if you want to go check it out. If you don't like it, we return your dollars, no worries. But yeah, I'm happy to connect with anybody that goes there.
Okay. Yeah, I need to get in there.
You'll be welcome, man. Yeah, that'll be fun to hang out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, check out this podcast. Check out this young man right here. I can still call him young man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I still get
old.
ID'd, and I get excited when I get ID'd. But 35 years old, and here we are.
Yeah, you're not old. You're young. So man, check out everything he's doing. This is amazing, and I appreciate your time, man. I truly do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man, for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Peace, y'all.